For 2 centuries, British policing has been defined by its local roots, but tonight that history has been rewritten. The Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, has just announced the most significant shake-up of law and order since the police service was founded. A new, nationwide police force is being established to take control of the country's most serious and complex crimes. While the government calls this a bold step forward, many are asking if this is a genuine solution to the spike in violent crime or simply a desperate attempt to centralize power. As this news broke, another crisis erupted at Wormwood Scrubs prison, where protesters breached the perimeter, forcing a lockdown. The message is clear. Britain is reaching a tipping point on law and order. Today, we're looking at the master plan behind the new National Police Service and what it really means for your local streets.
Let's look at the data. Currently, the UK operates with 43 separate police forces. The Home Office argues that this fragmented model allows serious criminals to slip through the cracks. The new national force will absorb the National Crime Agency, counter-terrorism units, and even roads policing. The logic: efficiency. By centralizing the helicopters, the drones, and the elite crime units, regional forces are, in theory, freed up to focus on the core business of shoplifting, burglary, and antisocial behavior. But critics, including those on our panel tonight, worry this is lipstick on a pig. They argue that without more boots on the ground, centralization is just window dressing. Furthermore, the abolition of police and crime commissioners, the elected officials who were supposed to give you a say in how your area is policed, suggests a move away from policing by consent and toward a top-down command structure dictated by Whitehall.
Why now? The political atmosphere around crime is at a boiling point. Whether it's the hate marches on the streets of London or the shock breach at Wormwood Scrubs, the public feels unsafer than they have in decades. Jonathan Gullis notes that millions are being drained from local budgets to deal with national protests, while shopkeepers are left to fend for themselves. The new force is designed to tackle people smuggling and serious organised crime. But for the average taxpayer, the question remains: will this stop the theft on my high street? The government is being judged on crime and disorder. If this new centralised model fails to deliver serious criminals in cells, it will be seen as the ultimate failure of the Starmer administration. A national force for a national crisis. The Home Office has put its cards on the table. They've abolished the commissioners, streamlined the command, and created a super force to take back control. To the viewers who stayed, you are seeing the total reorganisation of the British state in real time. Our promise to you is to track the results, not the press releases. We confirm that the old model of policing is dead. Whether the new one can survive the reality of Britain's streets is yet to be seen. Curiosity about two-tier results isn't going away. It's being codified into the system.
The moment lasts less than 5 seconds, yet it has shaken an entire nation. A teenage girl walks across a Swindon shopping centre at 9:30 p.m. Not late, not deserted, just an ordinary British night. But then, from the shadows of the car park, he appears. A 27-year-old man from Sudan, already convicted once, already released once, already known to the system. He moves fast. He grabs her. He tries to drag her away. Her arms flail, her feet scrape against the pavement, and the only reason she has not gone forever is because 2 stunned bystanders, ordinary people on an ordinary evening, race forward and tear him off her. The footage is grainy, frantic, almost unbelievable. You can hear the girl's panic. You can see the man's grip tightening, and you can sense the sheer chaos of the moment. This is not a distant headline. This is not a theoretical debate. This is a girl in a town centre, a child being pulled by a stranger who should never have been free to walk Britain's streets.
This is a story of our times, a story of the migrant crisis.
It is, and this is why people have been protesting, taking to the streets, because they are justifiably and entirely rationally increasingly worried about the threat to the safety of, in particular, women and girls.
To understand how we reached this moment, you must go back 2 years. September 2023. The man arrives illegally. By November, he is standing in a Canterbury courtroom pleading guilty to entering the UK without valid papers. He gets 7 months in jail. 7 months, a sentence many still cannot comprehend for someone who deliberately broke into the country. But the real outrage begins on the day he walks out. No deportation, no detention, no monitoring. He is released directly into the community, a community that would later become the scene of an attempted kidnapping. He drifts between towns, unnoticed, untracked. And somewhere along the way, a catastrophic failure unfolds. The British state simply loses control of him. He becomes another unaccounted figure in a growing list of individuals whose criminal past should have triggered the strictest scrutiny, not the loosest oversight. By the time he reaches Swindon, winter has set in. Christmas lights glow over the precinct. Shops begin to close. Families head home. The girl, who cannot be named, walks alone, doing something any teenager in Britain should be able to do without fear. He steps forward. He grabs her. And in those seconds, Britain finally sees the consequences of its fractured border system, not in abstract numbers, not in political arguments, but in the raw terror on a young girl's face. He is now behind bars again, charged with attempted kidnap, but the unease remains. Because across the UK, this is not an isolated incident. December alone saw 42 migrants convicted of serious crimes: rape, assault, child endangerment, violent disorder. Convictions, not allegations. Dozens of cases, 1 month. In Bournemouth, residents speak of asylum hotels becoming crime hotspots, knife attacks in local shops, women pursued through car parks, shopkeepers threatened by men wielding machetes. In Manchester, police log a spike in sexual violence linked to individuals awaiting asylum decisions. In Glasgow, officers warn that some arrivals have criminal histories their databases cannot access. And these incidents keep coming, faster than ministers can respond, faster than councils can react, faster than communities can absorb.
Now, step into the aftermath of the Swindon attack. The girl is safe, physically, but her parents are shattered. Police officers describe her as deeply traumatized. She no longer walks alone anywhere. Her friends no longer wander the town centre in small groups. Parents now rearrange their work schedules to escort children who used to navigate these routes confidently. Across Swindon, fear spreads quietly, almost invisibly. Women grip keys between their fingers when walking home. Teenagers coordinate travel in 2s and 3s. Shop staff double-check who is loitering outside during closing hours. The sense of normality has been punctured. Meanwhile, the man responsible sits in a cell, awaiting a sentence that may still not result in automatic removal, and that fact alone has ignited a national rage.
This is where Britain finds itself, trapped between rising crime data, skyrocketing public anger, and a government trying and failing to convince the country that control is being restored. Prime Minister Keir Starmer's administration has promised the toughest asylum overhaul in modern times. His Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, speaks of stronger border checks, faster removals, and Denmark-style temporary protection. The shift marks a dramatic hardening for a Labour government, driven largely by public fear and the surging popularity of Reform UK. But the Swindon case has exposed a brutal truth. Change is not coming fast enough. When the Home Office states it will do everything in our power to deport foreign offenders, critics now laugh bitterly. Because if such power exists, why wasn't it used? Why was a known offender simply released? Why do identical failures keep repeating? And why are communities left to deal with the consequences? Ministers point to the European Convention on Human Rights. Lawyers point to overloaded courts. Councils point to a lack of funding and information. But ordinary Britons point to something far simpler. The system doesn't work.
and people are paying the price for it. The December crime data reinforces the point. 42 convictions in a single month show a pattern that can no longer be brushed aside as coincidence or misfortune. It reflects years of administrative breakdown, unvetted entries, delayed processing, constrained deportation powers, and a government stretched across legal, political, and operational fronts. This is not a moral judgment on every migrant. Britain has welcomed those in genuine need for generations. But the distinction between vulnerable refugees and dangerous offenders has blurred. Not because the public lacks compassion, but because the system lacks competence. And when competence disappears, fear fills the vacuum.
In Swindon, life will slowly normalise. The girl will heal. The shops will reopen. The CCTV footage will fade. But the question this case leaves behind will not fade at all. Because if a man can enter illegally, be convicted, be released, and nearly abduct a child in a public square, then what exactly does public safety mean in modern Britain? And if December's crime surge is a warning, not an anomaly, then the final question becomes impossible to ignore. How many more failures can Britain endure before the crisis at its borders becomes a crisis on every street?
There is a specific kind of silence that precedes a national storm, the kind where the government hopes you aren't looking at what's happening to the foundations of the country. But that silence was shattered last night. From the hallowed grounds of SAS training bases to the streets of 5 major UK cities, a total collapse of cohesion has officially begun. While British pensioners wrap themselves in blankets, choosing between a radiator and a meal after losing their fuel payments, the state is requisitioning sovereign military soil to house 10,000 unvetted arrivals at a cost of £8 million a day. This isn't just a logistics problem, it is a visible fracture in the social contract. Today we are witnessing an internal surrender of a nation. Is Keir Starmer restoring stability, or is he presiding over a society in freefall? The decision to transform elite military barracks into dormitories for unknown men from across the globe has triggered a 67% collapse in public trust. These bases once honed the skills of the SAS. Today they are symbols of tactical abandonment. Across the British countryside, tactical police units are retreating from community tensions, a new code phrase for the chaos exploding as 1.2 million individuals bypass every legal check in the book. The betrayal is both financial and symbolic. When a government prioritizes the comfort of those who breached its borders over the warmth of the grandmothers who built the country, it doesn't build a fairer Britain, it engineers a national insult. While the authorities focus on crushing thuggery, the streets have earned a terrifying new reputation as the machete capital of the West. With over 50,000 sharp instrument offences in a single year, the public is reeling from a surge in violence that the police admit they can no longer control. But here is the nail in the story, the paradox of defence. In Starmer's Britain, a young woman is legally prohibited from carrying even a non-lethal canister of pepper spray for her own protection. If she carries mace, she is a criminal. If she is attacked by a gang with a zombie knife, she is a statistic. This state-enforced helplessness has created a vacuum where the law-abiding are disarmed by statute, while the lawless roam with near-total impunity. Why does the Prince of Human Rights refuse to act? Critics point to a legal framework that has become a blueprint for capitulation. We are seeing an industrial-scale deception where thousands of arrivals suddenly claim miraculous religious conversions or identity shifts the moment a deportation flight is mentioned.
Because Starmer remains ideologically tethered to the European Court of Human Rights, Britain remains the soft touch of the continent. Foreign judges in Strasbourg now have the final say on who walks the streets of Leeds and Liverpool, turning the UK into what Nigel Farage calls a vassal state of international bureaucracy.
A nation doesn't collapse through external war. It collapses through internal surrender. The riots, the machete attacks, and the requisitions barracks are merely the symptoms of a leadership that has traded sovereignty for operational necessity. The government can monitor the situation, and they can label the dissent as far right, but they cannot hide the receipts of a broken system. The curiosity of the viewer shouldn't be about whether the chaos will end, but whether there is anything left of the old Britain to save. The invisible eye of the public is open. The question is, will the state listen before the new normal becomes a permanent funeral for the British way of life?